At my mother's birthday celebration, my father labeled me a fool and proclaimed, "You've always been self-centered. Your sister outshines you." The room went quiet. I responded evenly, "You won't see another cent from me." What was supposed to be a simple family gathering spiraled into chaos. I had kept my distance from them for months after finally refusing to be their personal ATM. Yet, no matter how much I pulled away, they always found a way to reel me back in. This time, it was under the pretense of honoring my mother's birthday. Skipping it would only fuel their narrative of me being the ungrateful child, so I showed up. As usual, I footed the bill for the upscale restaurant, far too extravagant for their tastes. Not because they couldn't enjoy a lavish meal, but because they never paid for anything. My parents had mastered the art of mooching off others while acting as if they were doing you a favor by accepting your generosity. The tension was thick from the moment I walked in. My sister gave me a faint nod. My aunts and uncles offered courteous hellos. But my parents? My father barely looked up from his glass, and my mother acted as if my attendance was a privilege she'd bestowed upon me. Dinner started, and for a brief moment it was bearable. I endured the shallow chatter, the forced chuckles, and the empty small talk. Then my father, deep into his drinks, turned to me and sneered, "You've always been self-centered. Your sister is better than you." This wasn't a jest or a casual remark. He meant it, as if it were an indisputable fact. The table fell silent. My sister squirmed. My mother kept eating as if nothing was said, and the rest of the family either averted their eyes or pretended not to notice. No one ever stood up to him, no one ever contradicted him, but I did. I set down my utensils, wiped my lips, and met his gaze. "You won't get another cent from me." That struck a nerve. His face contorted with rage, his jaw tightened, and for the first time that evening, he truly acknowledged me. My mother stopped eating, my aunts exchanged looks, and the mood shifted because everyone knew the reality. My parents didn't value me. They valued what I could provide. For years, I'd handed them money whenever they fed me tales of their hardships, but they weren't struggling. They were wasting it on gambling, luxuries, and things I won't even name. I worked in real estate, brokering high-end properties in Los Angeles, dealing with elite clients. Meanwhile, I funneled thousands to my parents, who treated my hard-earned cash like pocket change. I was done. My father's expression hardened. My mother, realizing her usual tactic of ignoring the problem wasn't working, escalated. She grabbed a bowl of soup, poised to fling it at me like a scene from a bad soap opera. My aunt barely intervened in time, but it didn't calm things down. My mother stood and screamed at me in front of the entire restaurant, calling me ungrateful, insisting I owed them for all they'd done, their meal, the meal I had paid for. Then she threw the soup anyway. Hot, sticky liquid splashed across my new suit, the one I'd bought for a critical meeting the next day. I stood abruptly, nearly toppling my chair. My father fumed, my mother shrieked, and the rest of the family sat in stunned silence. Not one person defended me. That was it. I tolerated their insults, their manipulation, their endless demands. But this was intentional. This was public. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I grabbed my keys and walked out. As I left, I made a choice. They'd treated me like a cash machine for years, but they forgot something critical. The house they lived in, the car they drove, both were mine. If they wanted to act like I was nothing, I'd show them what nothing felt like. The next morning, I took everything back. I barely slept that night. My suit was ruined, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives urging me to be the bigger person. I replayed the scene in my mind. My father's smug face, my mother's theatrics, the way no one but my grandfather showed me any kindness. That's when I knew. They'd never change. By morning, I was done hesitating. I brewed coffee and started making calls. First, my real estate lawyer. The house was in my name. My parents never bothered to check the deeds, too busy bragging about their fancy home. I told my lawyer to list it immediately. Next, their car, also mine. I arranged for it to be repossessed. Then, for good measure, I reviewed their credit card statements. I'd co-signed one years ago when they pleaded for help rebuilding their credit. Big mistake. The charges were absurd. Casinos, five-star hotels, shopping binges. I reported the card stolen and canceled it. By midday, I was on a flight to Los Angeles for a meeting. I had better things to do than wait for their meltdown. But it came quickly. The first call was from my mother, screaming about the missing car. I let it go to voicemail. The second was from my father, ranting about how I'd destroyed their lives. Deleted. Then my sister texted, begging me to reconsider. "They're panicking, they have nowhere to go," I replied with one message. Not my problem. By the time I landed, my lawyer had already found buyers for the house. In this market, it would sell quickly. Then came the real shock. My grandfather called. Grandpa never got involved in family drama. He was old school, quiet, the kind who spoke only when it mattered. But this time, he had something to say. "Well done, kid." I was floored. He said he'd warned my parents for years to stop taking advantage of me. They never listened. He said they deserved this, that maybe hitting rock bottom would teach them something. Then he added, "Don't sell the house yet, I've got a plan." I had no idea what he was scheming, but for the first time in years, I felt like I had an ally. We met at a small diner outside town. Grandpa sipped his black coffee, eyed me, and finally spoke. "Your father thinks he's untouchable. It's time he learns what loss feels like." Instead of selling the house right away, we'd let them sweat. Let them realize the car was gone, their credit was frozen, and their safety net was gone. After years of living large on my dime, they'd face true desperation. Then, instead of selling the house, I'd rent it out. To someone else. "What if they beg?" I asked. Grandpa smirked. "Then we make them earn it." My parents had never worked for anything. They expected handouts. But if Grandpa had a way to make them face real consequences, I was all in. I updated my lawyer, listed the house for rent, no discounts, no favors. 2 days later, the chaos intensified. My father called, demanding to know why their home was listed for rent. My mother left tearful voicemails. My sister flooded my phone with texts. They're desperate, they have nowhere to go. The best part? My dad asked if they could borrow money for the rental deposit. I laughed and replied, "You called me self-centered. Figure it out." When begging didn't work, they showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when my assistant nervously said, "Your parents are here. They won't leave." I walked out to find my father raging, my mother playing the victim, and my sister lingering awkwardly. "You think you can just kick us out?" My father spat. I stayed calm. "If you want to live there, apply like anyone else. Prove you can pay." My mother exploded. "We're your parents. You should be helping us." I turned to my sister. She looked drained but stayed silent. She always did. My father sneered, "You're nothing without us. You owe us." Something inside me broke. "I owe you." I stepped closer. "I built my career while you squandered every dollar I gave you. Now you're broke because you never saw this coming." "Well, here it is." His face flushed. My mother gasped. My sister stepped back. I signaled my assistant, "Call security." Within minutes, they were escorted out. My father hurling insults, my mother crying about my betrayal, my sister trailing silently. As I watched them go, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Then Grandpa called again. "Good. Now let's make it worse." The next morning, all hell broke loose. My phone exploded with calls and texts. Then, Grandpa's calm voice. "Turn on the news." My father had been arrested. The headline read, "Local man arrested after luxury hotel altercation." He and my mother had stayed at a high-end hotel, ran up a huge bill, and refused to pay. When confronted, my father pushed a security guard and tried to run. The police took him down. Grandpa had tipped off the hotel. I laughed until my stomach ached. Meanwhile, the house went under contract. Not for rent, but for demolition. A developer planned to tear it down. My sister begged me to reconsider. "They're living in their car." "Not my problem," I said. A few days later, Grandpa called me to the diner one last time. There, sitting across from him, was my father, broken, defeated. "I lost everything," he muttered. Grandpa nudged him. "He wants to ask you something." "A job," my father said quietly. I nearly laughed. "You want me to hire you?" He nodded. "I have nowhere else to go." I studied him. The man who'd belittled me, humiliated me, let my mother throw soup at me. Now he was looking at me like I was his last hope, and I felt nothing. I stood, tossed cash on the table for Grandpa's coffee, and said, "Actions have consequences. You taught me that." Then I walked out. For years, I let them use me, hoping they'd one day care. They didn't. They only cared about what I could provide. Now they had nothing. And I had everything. Freedom, peace, and a life without their poison. For the first time, I slept deeply, knowing the only person I needed to care for was myself. If you connected with this story and felt its emotions, please give it a like, share it with others, and follow for more real-life stories and heartfelt experiences. Your support means everything and helps us share more stories like this. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next one.